And then what I'm going to take you through is exactly what I've given you access to. So you'll have access to the entire workbook, the worksheets, etc. And the worksheets that are in the workbook actually also include, like, they're editable. So you guys will be able to go through and make any changes to them that you require. So on that note, let me just kind of kick this off, just so that you guys can get a sense as to exactly what we're going to cover today. And hopefully this meets your needs. And if it doesn't meet your needs, then chime in and I will make adjustments, obviously, for you. So first, what we're going to do is begin the process of clarifying your business idea. So I'm a business and performance coach. I've been on both sides of the desk. So I've been corporate side as well as entrepreneurial side. I'm currently very much on the entrepreneurial side, having left the corporate side probably about 10 years ago. And what I have found as I am coaching and working with entrepreneurs is their biggest challenge is pulling everything together concisely and consistently and making it easy for themselves to just navigate through their idea and then formulate a plan. And so I've used this method with quite a few different entrepreneurs and small businesses, and it kind of feels like a plan on a page. I'm also going to give you some other documents in here so that you can go ahead and extend that plan on a page if you see fit or if you want to do that. But at least this will be a great catalyst. I also find that as entrepreneurs, we have a million ideas that are constantly churning around in our head. And so as a result of that, this is a good way to do a quick test to see if those ideas are good ideas or maybe crazy harebrained schemes. So this way, it's just a good evaluation. So this will allow you to quickly do that evaluation. In addition, I'm going to give you some tools to help you define your USP, which is your unique selling proposition. And I'm going to give you an example. So the other thing I try to do when I give you these documents is to give you a solid example so that by the time you are writing your own, you have a solid reference to actually work with. Sorry, and I don't know why that's hitting like that, so I apologize. Then the last part is to actually go through the key elements of a business plan. So to ensure that you've got all literally the I's dotted and the T's crossed, so you know what to think about. And then obviously to actually focus and plan it out so that you can actually start to get the wheels in motion. Those are kind of my goals today, is to provide you with the tools so that you can take this to the next steps. To give you a bit of a perspective, and interesting, 𝗵𝗍𝗃, I started actually this morning off with this same chart, because in business, we have all of these amazing frameworks and structures and processes that allow us to think through our ideas and through our plans. And we use them very consistently once we're in the throes of our business. So once we have, usually a year or 2 or 3 under our belt, we're pretty clear on who we are and what we're doing. So our vision, mission, and values feel like they're so clear and clean and concise. And literally that elevator handshake is very easy to recite. As we're going through this process of building it out, it's less easy to recite. But the hope is that obviously through today, we'll make that easier. And then my other hope in sharing this with you is that I trigger the importance of the process of understanding your vision, mission, values, setting objectives for your business, and or even setting objectives for yourself in evaluating your business idea, developing the strategies and the tactics to then bring them to fruition, and then the constant evaluation. And I think this is something we so intuitively do in business. In fact, it's even part of our structures, it's part of our jobs, it's written into our job descriptions. So we're constantly looking at the year ahead, and then beyond that, the next 2 to 3 year horizon, and then beyond that, even the longer term plan, all the while constantly monitoring and doing check-ins. And I think that's the key here, is there's always a system of checks and balances that is ingrained in what we do. So as you are thinking about your business idea, it's important to think about ways that you can constantly be tracking it once you actually start to put it in motion, so that you can see, is this gaining traction or not gaining traction? And if you look at some of the businesses that exist today, but started off very differently than they intended to, insert Amazon, where they started off literally distributing books, and now look, I want to say Elon Musk, but I feel like he always had a vision to do a million things and is doing the million things. But I think there's a lot of companies, even Uber, that has evolved from even its initial vision to where it is today, both locally and globally. And so I think the importance of having some of this initial thinking in place is to also open the door to further thinking as you learn about your business, see the reactions from the target that you're pursuing, as well as just the reactions in the marketplace. And that'll help you assess not only short and medium term viability, but long-term sustainability. So let's get to actually what is a business plan on a page. So there's lots of books about this. These are two that I actually highly recommend for entrepreneurs if this is something that you want a tool at your fingertips every minute of the day. And within the school community, 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗃, am I saying your name right? Oh, maybe you stepped away, or you haven't unmuted.
You are saying it right.
Oh, I am saying it right. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So Ravneet already knows this, but within the school community, there are also a list of resources. So books that I highly recommend, etc. So separate from having been on the corporate side. So I was at Nestle for 8 or 9 years. Then I ran a joint venture between Nestle and Coke for 8 or 9 years, went off and founded a new division and a whole new business entity for an agency, and then went on to do that a couple of more times. And now obviously have done that obviously for myself. In addition, I'm a prof and I teach strategy, business, entrepreneurship, and leadership, as well as marketing. And then I'm also a business performance and leadership coach and transformation coach, all very focused on people who really want to be entrepreneurs and as a result want to alter their lives personally and professionally in pursuit of that professional goal. So there's lots of tools on there. Some of the tools obviously are podcasts, etc. These happen to be 2 great books that I recommend. I'm very specifically a Donald Miller fan, and you'll hear me reference him a couple of times. He is actually a former movie writer. And so I like his approach because it's very simple and systematic. And in addition, I really like his approach to analyzing the target market. So that's something that we'll talk about in a few slides, but definitely somebody who, if you are interested in pursuing some easy ways to market your company and then get very clear on your target, obviously you can have the conversation with me, but there's also incremental tools that are available. So this business plan on a page kind of looks like this, and this is something that is out there in the market. And I have modified it ever so slightly so that it can work slightly, in my opinion, more easily for us. And I've used it, I want to say thousands of times. I'm probably exaggerating, but definitely hundreds of times at this particular point in time. So in the document that I provided to you guys, where you got the second link, this is in there. And as you will see, so this first one is just a screenshot to show you historical models on the business canvas on a page. And this one, as you can see, is editable. So you can go in and edit it as you like, change the sizes of these boxes, fonts, etc. So the reason that I like it all on one page is that obviously all of our dots need to connect and interconnect. And I think sometimes when we're putting things together and we're writing a business plan, we go through it from such a disciplined perspective that sometimes we just don't make it extremely simple and make sure that everything actually makes sense all in one very confined space before we move on to really dig into the details and the nuts and bolts of it. So hence the reason that I really like the business plan on a page. So let me give you a bit of a sense as to what each one of these areas represents. So the first one's pretty simple. It's like, what do you do? And it's literally either what do you do or what do you want to do? So what exactly is the offering that you want to have? Do you want to launch a new product or service? Do you want to launch a line of mugs, a new cell phone, a new piece of gardening equipment, like whatever it is, and literally be that simple about it. Write it as if it is a bullet point as opposed to a sentence. So the more succinct that you can be, the fewer words that you can use, the more focused you will be, and that will make this whole process much more effective and efficient for you. The second one is obviously, who do you help? And I think this is where all of us kind of go, well, technically, my product or service could help everyone. And that is very true in a lot of cases. I mean, if we looked at the mug, technically, everybody could drink from this mug and be very happy with that. But the truth is, oh, guys, I'm just going to double check this because I'm pretty sure I hit record, but then all of a sudden I had a doubt. Okay, no, I did hit record. Sorry, all of a sudden I was doubting myself. Are you guys seeing that I hit record?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, good. Okay, good, good, good. All of a sudden I was doubting myself and I was like, oh gosh, because I get so wrapped up in what I'm going to say that I forget. So thank you. Thank you for being my double check there. When you think about who you help, I actually want you, as you have your product and you're thinking about your product, to close your eyes and think of your ideal consumer, the absolute perfect person for you. I want you to picture, how old they are, how they would use this product, where they would be, how they live, almost as if you were going to put together a mood board of visuals of their life. Are they driving a Ferrari or are they taking, public transit to work? All the different things in their life so that you can really understand them and really focus and niche down. That's a word that they use so frequently in school. But I think it's something that's super important because once you actually can get that focus, then all of your messaging will be very, very clear. The next part is how do you actually help them? And this is where I think that we start to kind of get trapped in our own conversation. And this is where, once again, I'm going to, sort of refer to Donald Miller. So Donald also has, and I'll make sure that as I publish these notes, I include that. He also has a theory called story brand. And his whole point is that we go through the consumer journey. I specifically like the way he does it because I feel as if it kind of takes you back to your grade 8 English teacher who talked to you about the importance of having a main character who all of a sudden encounters, is living their life normally, but then all of a sudden encounters, this evil, wicked witch. And so now somebody else has to come along and help them battle the wicked witch or the demon. And then from there, they have that battle, there is a positive outcome, and then they live happily ever after. And I think sometimes when we are thinking about the key attributes of our product, we actually say too much. And what we actually need to do is focus down on ideally 1 or 2 attributes. And to better explain that, often when we are talking about a product, we'll give a person one piece of information and we'll say, this is why this product would be so good for you and how it would fit in your life. And so you've given them that one piece of information. They kind of go, oh, that's cool, and nod their head. Then you give them another piece of information and they're like, okay, like I get that. Now I have 2 pieces of information. So actually think of this as 2 particular bowling balls. So bowling ball 1 was the initial bit of information that you gave them. Bowling ball 2 is that second piece of information. Now you can see they're listening and you've got them engaged. So you decide that you're going to add a 3rd piece of information or throw to them a 3rd bowling ball. Now it's starting to get a little cumbersome and it's really hard for them to juggle this, but you can see that they're still listening to you. So you throw them a 4th bowling ball or maybe a 5th bowling ball. And what happens is that they drop all of the information. They literally stop thinking, stop listening, and they shut you down. And I'm sure you guys can think of examples where that first piece of information, that first bit of conversation, you meet somebody and they're like, hi, I'm Nicole. And, it's so great to meet you. And you have that first introduction and you're like, oh, this sounds good. And then you say, so what do you do? And if the person says, oh, well, I sell software equipment, then you're like, okay, so now we're going to have a dialogue back and forth. But if I answered the question by saying, well, I was born 50 years ago, and since that time, my career has had many different twists and turns. Obviously, the way I'm saying it obviously turns people off, but you also just automatically in your head start to hear it that way, and we get turned off. The same thing happens when we're telling product information. We all of a sudden start to zone out. If it's not actually going to help a person thrive and survive, then to be perfectly honest with you, they're going to stop listening. And obviously not all of our products are here to save the world. I mean, I can live very comfortably from one day to the next without this mug. makes my drinking my cup of coffee a little bit prettier, but obviously I can survive and thrive without it. So when you're thinking about how you actually help, who you help and how you help, it's really important that you put yourself in their shoes from their perspective. And I don't love these words, but you know what I mean when I say it, but we kind of dumb it down and simplify it so that we can help build our own narrative and literally hook them in relatively quickly and efficiently, and now have them stay engaged in our story. Obviously, the next step in that is how we'll actually let them hear about us. So we're going to start to curate this story, but how will they actually hear about the story? And I'm sure, you've heard about all the funnels, and obviously we start off with awareness. Then the next step down is the intent and the hope that we actually get some trial where the consumer or our target starts to get interested. And then once they try the product, our big hope is obviously that they're going to then buy the product. And once they buy the product, our hope is that they become then loyal users, which really the onus is on us for us to ensure that they remain loyal users. And somebody only stays loyal if we continue to ensure that we are adding value to their lives and our product or service continues to serve them. And then once we get past that loyalty stage, the hope is that because we're constantly adding value and keeping them and holding them tight and making them feel loved, that they'll actually become ambassadors for us and then start to share the story. So when you think about how we will tell people and engage them and how will they hear about us, obviously the funnel is much broader. So it's important that you think about that at this stage, because some things are relatively free. And of course, some things have a cost. So, we can create websites relatively affordably and often for free now. We can do lots of social media content relatively affordably and often for free if we're doing it on our own. Where things start to get costly is when we're doing paid media, paid content, and or we're buying, what I'll call traditional media, where we're either into TV or print or transit or billboards, or things where we're actually having to put dollars on the table in order for people to hear about us. Even, if we choose to work with influencers, unless the influencer is our friend, chances are we're going to have to pay them for them to actually start to share our story and talk about our product. So it's really thinking about, how is that key target going to hear about us so that we can start to build our business and ideally start to fill that funnel as effectively and efficiently as possible. The next piece on here is, as we start to fill the funnel, is obviously access to the product. And so in some cases, you may choose to do an e-commerce setup. So you've got some kind of either e-commerce backend or Shopify backend or whatever backend you choose. And you potentially are selling or offering your service direct, which is amazing, tends to be fast, efficient, and effective, and sort of makes you feel like you're in control. The challenge to that, reverts back to step 4, is that people are only going to hear about you what they hear about you as a result of your own efforts. Often the reason that we like distribution channels and partners and affiliates is because they already have a group of listeners or followers or consumers or clients. And so now we have the opportunity to leverage that and get greater awareness and greater reach much more quickly than if we did it on our own. Now, chances are that means we're going to have to share in some of the profits. So there's going to be a cost to that. But often the cost is highly connected to what actually gets sold through the process. So in some cases, not in all cases, but in some cases, you can actually have it that it doesn't cost you anything until that partner or affiliate or distributor makes a sale. In other cases, so if we look at traditional consumer packaged goods, for us to actually get this mug, for the sake of argument, into a Walmart store, for the sake of argument, we will have to obviously do a presentation that justifies its existence. Chances are we're going to have to pay what are called listing fees, which means that that's going to secure for us a space on their retail shelves and therefore in their warehouses and in their distribution centers, so that we can actually ensure that every single one of their stores has this product as we start to build out our campaigns, this means that anybody can go to any Walmart store and actually buy this blue mug. That's obviously that's where you can grow your business faster. That said, there's a high cost to that. And historically, I haven't actually listed a product at Walmart for a while, but the last one I listed, it was $100,000 per item. So if I had this item in this size, it would cost me $100,000 to put it into their system. If I had a slightly larger one or a slightly smaller one, then that would also cost me an incremental $100,000. So for each SKU, sales keeping unit, SKU, SKU, there is often a cost attached. And that's very true with most traditional consumer packaged goods retailers. With all other retailers, you can often negotiate some type of deal that allows you to begin the distribution process without having to lay out that much cash in advance. So nice to know that this exists. Important for you to be aware of it. Sometimes as well, these big, huge players will cut us a deal because they might love an entrepreneurial idea. When Burt's Bees first launched into mainstream consumer packaged goods, a lot of the retailers loved the product so much, loved their story so much, that they initially didn't charge them listing fees. So honestly, put together a good story and you never know what could happen. So I think that there's always an opportunity to negotiate. And so my suggestion would be is that you do that. But at the end of the day, the goal of that particular box is to actually figure out how are you going to get your product or service from your hands into the hands of that target. So it's more that you can just think it through, and it could be an evolution that happens over course of time. So initially you might have your own e-commerce set up. Over time, you may choose to use distributors and partners and affiliates. So it's completely up to you and what makes the most sense for your particular business model. Obviously, as part of this, you may or you may not require support in getting your product from point A to point B. So in some cases, I'm trying to think. So in some cases, you can literally, if it's a service specifically, you can flick a switch on the computer and you don't necessarily need help in getting your message out. Using the school example, we've chosen to put this content within a community and we're leveraging their particular support structure as well as our own in order to get the content out. So you could argue there is a bit of help there. In the case of something like this mug, maybe you need access to trucking companies and couriers and all different kinds of services that are going to help you deliver and provide this. Maybe you have a big cost of goods infrastructure and you're sourcing ingredients and supplies and materials from all different places, spaces, countries in order to create your product. So it's just understanding those pieces and noting them. And the reason these questions are here is just to provoke that thought so that you can see, in fairness, how easy it is or potentially how challenging it is to actually get your product to market. And the last two boxes obviously come down to, dollars and cents. And we're going to go through this in more detail because I've actually outlined some initial profit and loss pages here because I actually think that they're important. But I think if you just start to think about the costs that you will have, some are one time. So typically, obviously if we're going to create a website, we create it one time and then there's iterations and updates, but it's the initial cost of producing and creating things that sometimes take up the most resources. And then once we have a run rate, it's just maintenance of those. So you just kind of think about, what kind of costs are you going to have one time versus ongoing? And then obviously think of the different ways that you will earn revenue. There's lots of different revenue models out there. If we're doing e-commerce, it's right here in front of you, which is so easy. It's not even funny. If you're using multiple distributors, partners, or affiliates, then while that's amazing, it definitely means that there is a more intricate process for managing that to ensure that all the dollars and cents fall in the right places. So that's essentially what a business plan on a page looks like. And I'd like to say it actually is that simple, and you can literally drop the bullets in. And I have done this in 15 minutes or less with someone to literally do the quick gut check as to whether they're onto a good idea or not. What I have found useful is that often it helps them refine their thinking on what exactly it is that they're offering, so they get very focused and clear on the offering, and incrementally get very focused and clear on the target. Once you have those two down, honestly, I think you can figure everything else out. I got to be honest. I think you can figure everything out. So what I wanted to do was quickly talk to you about actually your ideal customer, because this is where I think we sometimes get trapped in our own mind and aren't as clear as we would like. So I said to you, visualize your customer. This is very much that thought process. Really get clear on the problem you solve for them. And obviously, not to be mean, but nobody's sitting around waiting for the latest coffee mug. They might not be sitting around waiting for your latest invention, your product, your service. But obviously, as marketers, we want to identify how we can make their lives better. And so what is it that we can put out there that is a cue to obviously provoke them to think, oh, I really do need that product or service. I mean, none of us need iPhone 16 that apparently is going to have all these incremental bells and whistles in it. But of course, once we start to see what all the technology can do, we're going to want it, right? So again, how can we plant those seeds so that we're getting that FOMO from our target? Obviously, then the next step, which is point 3, is where we come in and we're their guide. So our product or service comes in and offers them a solution to any challenge that they are going to have. And then hopefully in offering them that challenge, this is where we start to become the storytellers and share with them, this is the benefit of the product that I'm giving you. Here is how it is actually going to help you thrive and survive. So please give it a try. And then obviously it then becomes incumbent upon all of us, meaning the brand creator, to ensure that once they do start to buy or start to try, then buy and become loyal users, that we help keep them within our franchise, regardless of what is happening in the marketplace, competitively or otherwise. So this is when we start to hear about CRM models, so customer relationship marketing models, and staying connected to our consumer or our target. This is why that is so important. It is actually more beneficial to hold on to a current client or a current customer than it is to constantly be acquiring new ones. Typically, the cost of acquisition can be multiple dollars. It can be anywhere from double digit to 4, 5, 6 digit, depending on the category that we compete in. And yet, so think about it, if you're spending that consistently, that can add up to a lot of dollars just bringing people into your funnel. But once you actually have that right target and you take care of them, then chances are you can ideally keep them in your franchise and they will stay very loyal to you. My best example of this, I personally think, are car dealerships. I have been with the same car dealership, oh my gosh, I think since I was about 30, so I'm nudging 60. And so I've been with that same car dealership because not only did I bought a vehicle there, but then as my vehicles have been maintained or had different issues, so either accidents or my kids needing a car, or somebody in our family having a life change or whatever it is, or now just me needing a new car or needing a new lease or whatever it is, I have been managed so proactively and so effortlessly that of course I've just stayed with them. It's almost as if I wouldn't even consider going anywhere else because they've made the entire process so painless. And so I haven't, to be clear, I'm still not driving the same vehicle that I was driving 30 years ago. I'm definitely driving a different vehicle, and I've actually driven a different vehicle each time. So I've had an opportunity to expand within their portfolio. But I think the key is that they've actually kept me within their portfolio. And so this is why when we are also creating a brand or product or service, we're constantly thinking about, this is what we're creating today. And obviously we want to maintain that loyal consumer. So we stay connected with them to see as they grow and evolve, what do we need to do so that we can proactively grow and evolve and keep them as part of our franchise. I think, going back to my crazy, I think it's iPhone 16 that got launched this month. I'm actually not quite sure. Then obviously, again, the proof is in the pudding that do any of us need iPhone 16? Probably not. But is there going to be a degree of FOMO and envy if we don't have it? For sure. And so obviously that will be a catalyst to us at the very bare minimum, checking it out and then evaluating, how much longer do I actually need till I get that new phone or before I have to justify it? So just things to consider. And then obviously this whole process is cyclical because ideally if, our consumers do become loyal ambassadors, then they will help to continuously keep our funnel filling, which is awesome because now chances are you're getting a vetted target group, someone who is probably like-minded and similar to the person that you actually envisioned when you closed your eyes as that ideal customer. So now that we kind of have thought about that ideal customer, a key piece that I also want to talk to you guys about, because you've got this idea for your product, is your unique selling proposition. So what you're actually going to say to that person so that you ensure that you're differentiating yourself from everyone else. So I've actually, this is again, very similar to the previous sheet where you can go in and edit it. This allows you to go in and type about your own product or service. And then what I've done is I've used Uber Eats twice as an example so that you can actually have this as reference as you do your own. So the intent is that you come out of this with a clear example or a clear sentence for your USP. So you would literally say, our mug helps middle-aged women who want to enjoy a hot cup of coffee in a crafted vessel by offering something that is unique versus anything else that is on the market, which gives them this sense that they're having a cultural experience as they're enjoying their coffee. So I'm making that up as we go along. I got to be honest with you. But you can see that I'm trying to create this sentence as I'm going through each one of these boxes. So you guys, I'm assuming, know what Uber Eats is. You guys know who Uber Eats is, right? Like we know who Uber is and who Uber Eats is, right? I'm going to hope that's a thumbs up. So if we look at Uber Eats, when they first started, the intent was that they had this online food ordering platform that helps connect consumers, restaurants, and couriers to consumers who want to get food quickly and efficiently from local vendors by offering a fast and easy to use delivery system, which makes it easy to access the food that they want literally in minutes. So it literally provides this very simple solution that allows them to quickly and easily define who they are, the group that they're serving, and how quickly and easily they can inspire, motivate, etc., the target and the key stakeholders within their business circle. So that's what the purpose of the USP is to really help differentiate yourself within the marketplace as well as among your competitors and to really address that need of your key target. What I also put in here was the initial business model for Uber Eats. And the reason that I did this was because obviously back here, I had told you, this is a pretty standard business model. I was this whole business plan on a page. I was able to get hold of the business plan on a page model that was done for Uber Eats. And so I thought I would share this with you as a means of helping provide that sort of gut check or litmus test and reference point as you are creating your own business model canvas so that you kind of have this as a check-in. Am I going in the right direction? Sometimes I feel like, when we're doing some of these things, it's really tough to know if we're going in the right direction and if we're building things properly so that we set ourselves up for viability and sustainability. So that's in here strictly for your reference. And so I'm going to leave you to do that on your own. The next piece that I really wanted to talk about was the financial thinking and the financial planning, because I find that this sometimes can feel rather overwhelming. This is what I've put here is definitely not an all-encompassing list, but the intent is that ideally it helps trigger what some of your costs could be, and obviously what some of your revenue models could be. And then obviously the variance between the two is, your profit or loss. So obviously there's often a bunch of one-time costs which relate to, what is it going to cost to actually build out this product, create this product, etc. So those often are one time. And then you start to figure out what is the run rate for this. So, if I am creating a service as an example, I've got the one-time brain hurt of figuring out the website and the platforms and all of that, and often the costs and the resources to build that, or if we look at Uber as an example, we've got that initial build up of the app, etc. But then once we've actually got that in place, then the next step obviously is to monetize that. And so we've already created the app. Sure, there's going to be constant maintenance and upkeep, but chances are that is going to be minimal relative to the initial build. And I really shouldn't say it's minimal because, obviously in the case of Uber, they've invested a lot and now have gone far beyond food. But the intent is that it's actually more affordable as we go over time, because obviously now people are buying your products. So you're starting to get a degree of economies of scale. So I've also outlined in here a bunch of ongoing costs. They're really relative to the business that you're in and the business that you create. And so this is definitely not an all-inclusive list, but at least is a catalyst for thought. And then on the revenue side, obviously, we've already talked about this. Oh, I don't know why I actually put physical space in there, but I know why I put physical space in there. That actually totally did make sense, because you might have actually a retail outlet. So that's actually what I mean by that, is you may have a retail space. And so, you might have e-commerce, which is very easily facilitated right here. You might have a retail space, and you might have partners, distributors, or affiliates that are helping sell the product for us. And often in these cases, your profitability is not the same. So often your profitability when you're selling something directly on your own is the highest, because there's fewer hands that are touching the process or involved in the process. When we have a physical space, obviously there's the overheads that are attached to the physical space, and so that eats into our profitability. And ditto when we're working with partners, distributors, or affiliates, there's a certain amount of money that we have to give them as they are helping support us as a means of keeping them engaged. And so obviously there's a cost to that. The next piece that I put in here was actually a really quick profit and loss statement. And the dark gray lines are intended to provide ways to sort of separate up what we would call a P&L, profit and loss statement. P&L, same thing. And then what I've put across the left-hand column is typically the way it's structured. So it usually goes revenue, then it goes costs. Revenue minus costs is gross profit. Then you have, and costs are strictly at this particular point in time, the cost of goods sold. So the cost related to actually creating your product or service. Then the next set of lines are expenses. So these are things that you would like to do as a result of actually trying to market your product. So this is where advertising comes in, insurance comes in, legals, office space, a whole, your internet, all those other costs that are really listed in here start to be noted in that part of the profit and loss statement. And then you literally add up, what are your total expenses? You subtract your you take your gross profit, subtract your total expenses, and you get your net profit or loss. And so from there, you can determine, is this feeling like it's viable? When you're first doing this, it's a good way to just run through the math super quickly. And then ideally what you do as you are laying out your business model is that you lay this out over a 12-month time period. So you literally would do, if we were looking at launching this in 2025, we would do January to December of 2025. Conversely, If you wanted to, you could also do a long-term plan where you laid it out for, the years ahead. So what I would suggest is that you decide a model that makes the most sense to you. And then obviously you lay out a framework that is going to be the most beneficial for your particular company or business model. The other thing that I put in here is some different organizational structures. So what I did, because predominantly I work with entrepreneurs, is I put in two that are here specifically that we talk about the most. One is a sole proprietorship. That is where you choose to do it 100% on your own. So you're not going to have any business partners. You are going to go into business on your own for yourself and be 100% accountable to yourself for the purpose of building your business. The benefit to that is that you're in control and you don't need to check in with anyone else. The disadvantage to that is that you are in control and you aren't checking with anyone else. And so I think sometimes while you are in control, it's good to have someone else to vet your ideas with. So often what I will say to many of the people that I work with is to actually create a bit of a circle of genius or a mind trust or a board, a group of people that you can go to that are unbiased, have nothing but your best interest at heart, are not related to you. So they're not your friends and they're not your relatives. They are other business people that you can go into, and you can join there's lots of different organizations that offer this. And so you have the opportunity to create a board or be part of a board where you actually do this for each other. And I have personally done that in the past and found it to be extremely useful. So I would highly recommend that. And I would recommend that because I find that otherwise we just get trapped in our own minds and don't necessarily make all of the right decisions. So that's my 2 cents on a sole proprietorship. Whether you do a sole proprietorship or any of the other two, you'll notice that I've identified in here some other bookkeeping and financial issues. I would say regardless of the structure that you put together, it's important that you have a solid financial partner, service provider, whatever it is. So a bookkeeping company, an accountant, whoever you choose to use, so that you can continue to focus on what you're good at and allow them to focus on your books and numbers. And that can be done actually quite affordably. The other organizational structure that I put in here is a partnership. There's different kinds. You can do a general partnership or a limited partnership, a limited liability partnership. All of these really suggest from a legal perspective, the terms and conditions by which, if God forbid something happens to your company, who's liable for what from a legal perspective. And often, obviously you buy business insurance, so that protects you, but it also just helps mitigate any challenges that you may have along the way. So I strongly recommend that you take a look at this as well, if this is something of interest, because there are lots of legal requirements here specifically for the purpose of just really helping to establish. I don't know why that didn't copy, but there's an opportunity really to understand, what is the best way for us to work together to manage the partnership, and then incremental to that, obviously to have agreements that protect you from whatever may happen within the industry and or within your partnership. I also put down here a corporation. Sometimes even as individuals or as partners, you may choose to incorporate. I highly recommend that. And so that just actually protects you from a liability perspective. But you could also go on to create a corporation where you're going to have literally hundreds or thousands of employees. And so, I'm sure when Jeff Bezos started Amazon, I'm not sure that, I know he had a big vision, not sure that he had the huge vision that has manifested and created itself today. But obviously he has this huge enterprise, and as a result has a lot of structure in place to help manage the business, and also obviously manage all the people and departments and divisions within his organization. And so important to understand, what is it that is going to honestly make you feel the most motivated, the most inspired to get up in the morning and truly launch your business idea. So that pretty much sums up everything that I wanted to cover in terms of providing you with, the layout for being able to quickly and efficiently figuring out a business plan on a page and get yourself into a mode to evaluate, is this idea even viable or sustainable? So that was point one. And then second of all, really get clear on obviously your target, your unique selling proposition, and then, as a gut check, pull it all together so it makes sense and feels good for you and is truly motivating and something that you want to do. As entrepreneurs, we consistently have all these crazy ideas. And the key is obviously having some way to gut check them so that we can prove to ourselves, not really anybody else, but ourselves, that they're not crazy ideas and that they can come to life and that they can be profitable and useful to people far beyond ourselves. So my hope is that was useful for you today. Obviously, there's lots more resources and tools within my school community. And so don't hesitate to reach out if this is something of interest or something that, you're considering pursuing, but you want to have more of a conversation. I am literally a text message or email or school message away. All right, my friends. That is a wrap for today.
Yeah.
Hey girl, you're done for today now. You're done all your education. You've had 2 lectures today.
Yeah.
That's too funny.
And the goal version, how do I submit for only, can I submit as a PowerPoint?
Yep, you can totally do it as a PowerPoint. And what you can do is just add it to your timesheet. And for this one, I would say you don't have to submit it, but you can just, for this one, you don't have to submit. Sorry, you can just record